All right, Darren, thank you so much for being up for doing this. Folks, today we are going to take a narrated walking tour of the grounds that have been master gardened over here on Ross Lane. Darren is very familiar with plants in this area. I'm sure many of you recognize him from Chenard's Nursery. He is on loan from them. He is not here representing Chenard's. We appreciate them being up for saying, yes, we can connect with him. And Darren, we appreciate your time. Let's walk around and look at plants.
All right, thanks, Michael. So we have a nice mature landscape that's really loaded with excellent shrubs, some nice collector's items, very unusual material. We'll start over here with some of the conifer collection. We've got some very nice shrubby pines, of course the Alberta spruce. Particularly notable is the beautiful dragon's eye style pine here, a nice pine that never gets too big, and it has that stunning yellow variegation on the inside of the needles, creating that eye look when you're looking down the stem. Just a stunning specimen, very, very, very full grown. As we pass on out into this section of the landscape, we have some nice fruit trees, fully mature production age, some apple trees here, and some unusual collectibles. Trocodendron spinning wheel tree is quite a rarity and has a very unusual flower. It's a subtropical broadleaf evergreen, but it performs adequately here and it can become quite large over time. Some more nice conifers in the collection over here. We have a nice weeping Norway spruce and another one of the shrubby pines. A little hard to tell exactly which one, but there's a lot of them to go around. And again, that's very mature. It's not going to get a whole lot bigger than it is right now. Here's another collector's plant for us. The Seven Suns tree, noted for its peeling bark. And unusual for our area, this is a late summer flowering tree, white fragrant flowers in August, followed by these intensely purple calyces that persist well into October. Again, this is full grown. This is as big as this one will ever get. A real stunning specimen. Very, very nice addition to the collection. So for a nice hot facing up against a building, we have some very nice rock roses, super tough, durable plants, fully evergreen with an early summer flower. These are a white flowering form here. And just a really deer-resistant, drought-tolerant, very, very hardy shrub. They can be kept pruned as they are now. They can be let sprawl a little bit, and they perform quite well either way. A nice tree and shrub bed happening over here. We're going to step off for a moment this side. A personal favorite of mine. This is the multicolored version of the flowering quince called Toyo Nishiki, and you'll notice each flower there's pinks and there's whites and there's deeper pinks, and they're all kind of blended together, not only on the bush but even flower by flower have some secondary markings on them. A real stunning plant. Not at its peak right now, but will be stunning in October, is the burning bush, famous for their very intense red fall color, and will be just a stunning beacon in the fall. A nice big flowering plum just coming out of flower right now. These will have the purple leaves through the summer and of course the pink flowers in the early spring. They were the first of the major flowering trees to bloom in the spring. And quite a nice specimen there. A little more towards a native note. This is a manzanita. So this one is probably sunset. They're already just finishing blooming as we see now. They're a late winter to early spring blooming, but people grow them as much for the evergreen foliage and the interesting stem structures as they do for any flower development. Wire net bush. Seldom see any nice big ones like this around. Australian shrub that is surprisingly hardy and durable. As long as it doesn't get too wet, it does quite well here. A very textural plant. That's as much leaf as it's ever going to get. That's fully leafed out. Later in the spring, they'll have some very pretty yellow star-shaped flowers to them, and just quite a stunning plant. Very unusual structural element. We have some summer blooming hydrangeas. These are the sun-loving hydrangeas, Hydrangea paniculata, and so they'll be a very showy piece in July and August here in the landscape. A couple of conifers tucked here and there. Nice little gold cone juniper, very durable, very easy one to grow. Some nicer small shade trees. Persian ironbark, Parotias. There's got a nice young one here. and a more mature one over on the fence line. Persian ironbarks are in the witch hazel family. They have little tiny flowers with no petals, little tiny strappy things that happen in the winter. Again, they're past bloom now. They're very, very early blooming. They're more famous though for their fall color. Each leaf on the plant will take on a little different hue in the fall, so you get this mix of yellows and oranges and reds and some purples, all intermixed in the fall. A very stunning plant. So as we work down the perimeter here, we have a nice mixture of woody plants that are very durable and can be planted amongst with some additional annuals or perennials to kind of fill some of the spaces. We have some very nice miniature 9-bark. One of the smaller deutzias just getting ready to flower. That'll be just covered in white flowers in a week. One of the small congested leaf hebes. And then as we look towards the background, we have a nice, one of the variations on the red twig dogwood, probably Arctic fire, midwinter fire, one of those. And hiding down below it are peonies just coming up. Those will be some late spring and early summer color. Just a beautiful plant to work with. And then the side bed here is a nice mixture of different types of coral bells, several variations on the coral bell. And in amongst it, we have, of course, some native ferns and some hellebores, another excellent early blooming plant. Solid perennial, very tough, and they'll bloom even with snow on the leaves a lot of years. Very, very attractive plant. And as we're looking into the corner tree material here, we have yet another Persian ironbark, and then one of the twisted or contorted flowering locusts, a twisty baby. And this is very full grown, it's very mature. It takes a very long time for them to get to look like this. They're a textural plant, but they also provide an interesting foliage cover. Even the leaves that come out will be somewhat contorted, and so you have a very, very unique, where you see a lot of the branch through the leaves, even when they're at full leaf. And then the shrub bed section here, we've got a couple of types of 9-bark, including some purple-leafed 9-barks. They're very, very popular, great pollinator plant, as well as just a very nice solid landscape plant. Pretty much bulletproof. They really don't have any major issues here. And in the background, you can see the spent flowers from last year of a nice smoke tree, not full grown yet, but it's getting along the way. And they have really strong foliage colors, really airy flower clusters. They call them smoke tree because they look like smoke drifting across the leaves. They're also noted for very good fall color, and they're a nice modest-sized large shrub small tree. Another personal favorite of mine here in the foreground, this is the pink dawn viburnum. Buds up in the late summer to fall, and the flowers will open a few at a time through the middle of the winter on bare branches, and they're fragrant. And then as the flowers start fading out, the leaves come out, and the leaves get quite a bit bigger than you see here. And then the leaves, when they're bruised, smell distinctly like green pepper, a very unique shrub. A lot of fun to work with. Our side bed here along the house is a very nice array of shrub material with some perennials intermixed. We have one of the summer daphnes here, probably Carol Mackey or summer ice. And these are a shrub that has a very fragrant flower and repeat blooms several times through the summer. So they'll be in bloom from very late spring all the way up till fall. In the shade of the structure here, we of course have some more hellebores, traditional hydrangeas, stunning plants in the late part of the summer, and some nice perennials, including this little dwarf goat's beard. A really pretty white flower in the summer and repeat blooming through most of the summer, with a very delicate foliage on a plant that is incredibly tough and never misbehaves. It's always just this really tidy mass. Excellent plant to work with in the landscape. Across the way, we have some nice shade tree structures. We've got a nice maple going here, native cascara, full-grown native cascara there. And a beautiful flower bed, a lot of spring bulbs this time of year. Of course, those will die down to be replaced by later developing perennials. And some of the later developing perennials are beginning to come in. We can see some meadow rue and some columbine coming up in the mix. Right now it's predominantly daffodil, tulip, the traditional spring elements. And some peonies coming in, which will also give you some later season interest. Another collector's plant here in the corner, Helvingia. Don't know a common name for that one. It's a rarity. As you can see if you look around, it's got some suckering habit, so it does spread itself a little bit, but it's well behaved overall. It's famous for having its flowers and then its small fruit develop right in the middle of the leaf axil and leaf vein instead of in the axil. So it's not on top and it's not in the joints. It's actually flowering and fruiting right in the middle of the leaf. A very unusual structure. Not very many plants do that. So lots of substantially well-developed shrub landscape beds, easy to maintain, drip irrigated. We have a nice variegated osmanthus here, evergreen shrub. They call this one 5-color. The new growth will come out with a deep purple tone, and then it'll fade back to this mottled 2 tones of yellow on 2 tones of green. Less noted in them, but well worth considering including, is because their flower. They're a September to October flowering shrub. You'll hardly ever see the flowers. They're little tiny things and they're well down on the interior of the shrub, but they're distinctively fragrant, a very pleasant, sweet fragrance late in the fall. Very unusual, unusual shrub. And of course, the sedums are filling up some of this space along the edge of the walkway to keep your safe distance from this wing-thorned rose. So a pretty enough rose, a wild rose habit, so it's kind of an open flower, but people actually grow this one for the very prominent thorns, which are obviously visible even in the winter, in fact more visible in the winter. And that's their biggest ornamental character, is actually their thorn development. But they will catch you. Be aware of them. Nice big shade tree, a maple tree here in the main bed here, and some more congested hebes. More 9-barks. There's several 9-barks throughout the landscape. Here's another fun one though. Harry Lauder's walking stick, or contorted hazelnut. This is a non-nut-bearing filbert or hazelnut. Winter blooming. The catkins are still just barely on. But it's grown again for this textural structure, all these very twisted and contorted branches. And the specimen here is very full grown. They will never get any bigger than this. And then as we walk down the pathway this way, nice use of euonymus. It can be grown as a ground cover. It can be kept pruned back as a shrub or somewhere in between. This little low hedge is a very effective use of it. And it's screening the bottom ends and shading the bottom ends of this beautiful little clematis, which will be in bloom here in May. This is a 2-cycle bloomer. It'll bloom in May and it'll take a pause and it'll bloom again in July to August. And beautiful flowering vine. Besides the production fruit trees, there's some ornamental fruit trees. The flowering crabapple here is a very nice specimen, very nice early season bloom, and a great habitat plant. It's great for pollinators. And the fruit is well enjoyed by birds, although it's pretty small for human consumption. We got another collector's plant here. This is a Spanish fir. It's not full grown, but they're very slow. It has these tapered conic branches with very stiff needles, very stiff, particularly by fir standards. They're just in spring flower right now on the Spanish fir. When it gets a little bit bigger, it'll change from this pyramidal habit to have a little bit more of a spreading canopy to it. And the branches will develop a little more distinctive whirling pattern. But it's old enough to cone, which is always a big plus.
And we're just realizing that we were so enthralled with the conifer right there that we missed part of this bed. So what do we got here?
We've got some nice 9-barks. These are some of the amber-colored 9-barks, which gives you an interesting, very unusual color tone. And this whole bed actually has a lot of highlighting in it. We've got a pair of these gold Bryan escallonias, which will be kind of a reddish-pink flower in the summer, but they're grown quite a bit for their bright yellow new growth. And this little plum yew here is kind of unusual, Cephalotaxis. That's Duke's Garden. It's a kind of a spreading conifer that gets a nice horizontal habit and a very, very strong, interesting structure. This is an oddity too. This is a little, it doesn't look it, this is a little miniature red twig dogwood variety with these very contorted, almost crisped leaves. It's a very unusual variant. We don't see it very often. And of course, as we work back into here, we have still more perennials. This beautiful, very double hellebore back in here. And underneath the shade of this, yet another flowering crabapple, we have this Asian Mahonia, soft caress. A little airy leaf, broadleaf evergreen. Gets yellow flowers like our native Oregon grapes do. This is one of the Asian versions. But they're in summer, August and September bloomer here, and little tiny panicles of flower. We also have a mayapple coming up. No, that's not, yeah, that is podophyllum. Big leafed ornamental, again, shade plant, grown for its foliage rather than for its flowers. And the leaves get quite a bit bigger than that over time.
Excellent.
There's a couple of these on the property as well. There's one, we'll point out another one maybe in a minute here, but this is Azara. So this Azara is a evergreen shrub from Chile, but quite hardy. They just finished flowering. They're these little tiny yellow flowers near underneath the leaves. If you blink, you'll miss them. They're brief and they're small, but when they're in bloom, they smell like chocolate, a very distinctive scent. A nice little open, small-leafed, broadleaf evergreen, as well used for its structural elements, again, rather than its flowering. Nice, fully mature shrub bed again. And you can go to the prickly side sometimes. We got some barberry. Barberry is always a bulletproof plant, super durable. Deer won't bother it. Will take just about any conditions you throw at it. There's lots of junipers that can be played with in a landscape, but Holger is a really attractive one with that little white to yellowy tip on the new growth, and on a plant that's neither a big upright shrub nor a spreading ground cover, but somewhere in between. A very attractive little shrub. Love the arching habits to these, especially as that new growth comes out. And more flower beds on the approach here with more daffodils going. And the sedums down here are some of your fall blooming sedums. So those will hit about September and into October. Stunning, bright cerise flowers that will just be completely covered in bees in season. One of the most popular plants for bees in the late season. And as we work our way on around, we have another beautiful Holger juniper. This is what they look like with no pruning on them at all, just that very nice, loose, open arching habit. And an underutilized plant, this is a Japanese Spirea, Spirea thunbergii. They're very early blooming, typically March here. And so they got this very light, airy habit in flower, but unlike a lot of the Spireas, they actually keep that habit. The leaves are relatively small, the loose, light, arching branches gives them a very pleasant kind of airy texture. Fall color is usually yellow to gold, and it's pretty strong. It makes a pretty good impact in the fall landscape as well. Red buds are another stunning spring blooming tree. And they'll have some heart-shaped leaves later, but they flower before the leaves come out. They're a little legume, as you can see from the keel shape of the flower. And over here, we have a nice elderberry. Always look a little rough this time of year, but the new growth is beginning to come out, and they're just a bold plant when they're in flower. It's a huge cluster of flower, and it's followed by just masses of fruit. Edible, you do need to cook them before you eat them, but they are quite edible. And then a lot of this bed here will have plenty of winter interest, lots of red twig dogwood. It's passing its peak color as we're getting into spring. As the new growth starts happening, the stem color kind of fades a bit. But intensively red stems through the winter, giving you some very off-season interest. And fronting this patch of trees, we have some more shrub and perennial mixed beds. The shrub hypericum, the St. John's wort here, is the florist's type, so those berries look pretty drab right now, but when they're first out, they're bright colors, usually either creams or oranges or reds, and they're showy enough they use them quite a bit as cut pieces in the floral trade. Very attractive bush. Again, very trouble-free, a very durable plant. Speaking of durable, honeysuckles, all the honeysuckles are successful in this area. Pleasant, fragrant flowers. This nice little one has been trained into this, this antique wagon wheel. Makes a nice presentation for it. Some more very hardy rock roses out here. This is a miniature sumac. Won't ever get much bigger than maybe 6 feet or so. Doesn't sucker as bad as the big ones. Sumacs are airy multi-part leaves, so they've got this trunk canopy and then this trunk structure and this canopy of these very dissected leaves. Fall color on sumacs is stunning and very early in the fall color season, so they'll color and drop before a lot of the other fall color stuff even gets started. We have another beautiful smoke tree here amongst the yuccas and such, and flax trees, flax shrubs. Big old wisteria, nice, very thoroughly trained and braided wisteria on a metal post that's actually strong enough to hold one. That's always nice to see. So that's just getting ready to flower. You see the flower buds expanding now, and so it'll be a spring bloomer, later part of spring. Big panicles of usually purple flowers, quite a stunning vine. And it's backdropped very effectively by the cedar of Lebanon. That one's going to keep growing for a while, but it's getting some good size to it now. Another peak pollinator plant over here, California lilac. Very fast growing, very hot tolerant. Blue flowers in the late spring, and often we get a second bloom on them in the fall here. Just a very, very strong plant. When it's in flower, it will be completely covered in blue. You won't even see any leaves underneath it. And it will be just about as covered in bees, and not just honeybees. Bumblebees and a lot of our solitary bees visit them pretty heavily too. They are of a native species, so they're well adapted for our local pollinators. And of course, the front end of this bed, we've got some of the little miniature nandinas, super hardy plants again, and they're framing this beautiful paperbark maple. That one's going to get probably about twice that big long term. It's got a stunning fall color, but it's grown as much for the bark interest as anything, as you can see. And we have another honeysuckle in another wagon wheel, continuing the theme through. And as you can see, the whole bed is just well spaced for good plant health and excellent condition. A little bit larger nandina on the front end here, and I'm not even sure what that one is.
There had to be something.
It happens. I can't tell if that's Pernetia. It looks like a Pernetia. Want me to talk about the vegetable space over there too?
Sure.
Okay.
We've got some garden space over here too, so let's show that off, and the apple trees.
So besides the couple of apple trees on the one side and some of the ornamental crab apples mixed through the landscape, there's a nice little orchard out here. We got some blueberry plants. We've got some pear trees in the orchard on this side. There's some arbor structures up, but I noticed that the one arbor up front actually has a grape growing on it as well. And then this open space here that includes some raised beds as well as some well-amended open soil space is well situated for vegetable gardening. It's a good soil. It's kind of protected in where it's going to keep some heat in, but it's got a full sun exposure all day long. Excellent for growing vegetable crops in.
Now we're going to skip to the backyard. From this area, you do have views of Murray's Peak, as you can see, and I'm sure you'll see that on the other promotions. And we are going to take a look at the forest. So if we check out the personal forest here, we've got this leyland cypress, we've got this row of giant sequoia, and then most of the rest of this is about 80% ponderosa pine. It's your personal forest that is in a deferral that would be easy to continue going. There's some Doug fir in the back corner, but most of this is ponderosa pine.
If you want to edit another plant in. I knew I'd remember in a moment. That's polygala, a nice little evergreen ground cover that blooms very, very, very early.
We knew it would come back. Thanks again for making this happen.
Thanks, Michael.